Hello everyone, back at it again with another video. And this time I got my ice sled, and that means we're going ice fishing. But first I have to cross this mud flat and rock field. I end up carrying my sled a whole lot. This is one of the reasons I like to keep things light, because if I had 150 pounds of sled and gear, I wouldn't be able to do this. We've got about 7 inches of ice. Oh yeah, and job number 1 is to test my repair on this auger blade. I lost what they call one of the blade screws. It's really a 8mm bolt, and the hardware store only had longer bolts, so I had to add a couple of washers. I was thinking about using a grinder to grind off the excess, but a fishing friend of mine suggested washers, and that worked great. I used 3 thin washers to take up the extra space, and as you can see, my auger is back in business, and I'm just flying through the ice. I didn't show me measuring it, but there's about 7 inches of ice, and it's good quality ice. But it's only good in the smaller protected coves. Where I am in New England, we've had this relentless northwest wind blowing 20, 30, 40 plus every single day, and it's keeping a lot of the main lake areas from freezing. Or if they are frozen, it's junk ice, it's skim ice. That sometimes gets ripped open by the wind and then refrozen. So it's really thin, you know, an inch, inch and a half, maybe 2 inches. So you got to be super careful. The next day we got some snow, and the snow will make everything look the same, and it's absolutely not all the same. So anyway, I started out with a small Swedish pimple, and in the black ice color. That's a new color for me, or a newer color. I think a few years ago a fishing friend of mine recommended that color, and I tried it out, and yeah, it works great. And I thought I'd pick it on this, it's kind of a clear bluebird sky, but we still have that relentless northwest wind, and it's blowing, it's fierce. I know it doesn't look like it, I know everything looks still. I'm a little bit sheltered here in this cove, but it is not warm, and it's blowing a gale. So yeah, I'm trying to see what I can catch on this black ice pimple. It's the smallest size. I think it's 1/13 of an ounce, 1/12 of an ounce, something like that. And I was able to find a lot of these 6-7 inch perch. And my cat would love these, but they're not too interesting for me. But I really wanted to try out this new Canfish underwater camera. Now, I should say they don't sponsor me. I paid for this, and I'm going to give you my honest review of it. I hooked it up to this little improvised ice fishing rig. Just a 2x2 block of wood, some heavy-duty braid wrapped around that block of wood, and that's going to keep it from falling down the hole. And you already saw me put a big heavy-duty snap swivel onto that Canfish camera. And the directions on this are a little bit slim. And I feel like they could have done a little bit better on the directions. But basically, you stick it in the water, and it starts recording, even without it being connected to an app. That's another thing. The camera connects to your phone, but I couldn't get it to connect on the ice. You know, I tried it at home too. It connects fine at home, but on the ice it wouldn't connect. And you can see it's sitting there on the ice. It's not underwater, but I couldn't get it to find the network. It has its own Wi-Fi signal, and I couldn't find it. Now maybe that's just something I was doing wrong. Because again, it worked fine at home, but I couldn't get it to connect on the ice. Now, if you put it underwater, the Wi-Fi isn't going to work, and so you can't see what you're recording underwater. When you pull it out, if you can get it to connect, you might be able to see what's on the camera, and you can see those clips play on your phone. But here's what it looks like underwater. There's a green light. I didn't turn the green light on, it just came on when I put it underwater. And this is what it looks like underwater. To me, it looks a little bit like outer space. I mean, it looks otherworldly. And there's little critters flicking around in there. Sometimes You see current pushing water underneath the ice. Again, I'm in a sheltered cove, but parts of the main lake are still open, and it's blowing a gale, and you see some subtle differences in the water. It seems like it's pushing in and out a little bit, almost like tidal. You see all those critters and bugs jumping around down there. I don't know exactly what they are, but they show up as these kind of circular things underwater. Maybe they're amoeba. I don't really know. But they were jumping around all over the place. And I think that's a good thing. I think, you want to be in an area with signs of life. You want to be somewhere where there's a food chain, even though right now I'm looking at the kind of the small end of the food chain. Even better would be some fish on video, and we're going to see those in a few minutes. I cut ahead a little bit, but here comes our first customer. It's hard to see, but he's in the middle of the screen, and that's a nice bluegill. And that's part of what I'm after. I'm trying to jig up some panfish, besides the 6-inch perch. And he's just staring at my bait. He's not too hungry, not too interested. My jig's in the top corner of the screen. There's another one to the left. That kind of looks like a white perch to me. And those tend to be a little bit bigger in here. They run a little bit bigger than the yellow perch or the bluegill. Yeah, they weren't coming up for the jig. Generally, if you can get them to come up, you'll be in pretty good shape. The other thing is you can see the weeds in the left side of the screen. And generally what I want to try to do is set up on the weed edge where big bass like this, that's a tank, can sometimes cruise by. And the camera helps with all that. Here's a pickerel. You see his face? I know it's a little hard to see, but you can see his pectoral fins moving. He's in the middle of the screen. And he's after these little yellow perch. So I was able to find some life. And the camera really helps identify what's down there. Because these little 6-inch perch, if you're fishing with a big lure, they'll drive you nuts. You can see them on sonar, but you have no idea what they are. You don't really get a great idea for the size of some of these perch. But all these perch are fairly small, 6-7 inches. But this is all good information for me. I just caught one of those little perch. But I like seeing what kinds of fish are down there. What are the predator fish? What's the primary forage? In this case, it looks like for the bigger fish, the primary forage is those 6-7 inch perch. See everything rotating around. It almost looks like a Milky Way galaxy or something. It's crazy what it looks like down there. All right, what's next? This is a slightly bigger perch. I know he's kind of hard to see, but that one's probably more like the 10-inch range. But he's not interested in my jig, and the next frame shows why. See that? That's a big pickerel, and he came in pretty hard, pretty fast, fins up. He didn't actually eat my jig, though. But you see, he's a chain pickerel. You can see the chain markings on him clearly. And he's in there chasing those 6-inch, 7-inch perch around. That's what these things eat in the wintertime. And yeah, look at that. That must be terrifying if you're a 6 or 7-inch perch to see one of these things coming at you. But you can see on camera that all the perch vanished. And that's pretty common. That's another thing you see on sonar. All of a sudden, you had a screen full of fish. And maybe there's a big red mark that comes by, and your screen empties. And here's why. It's because there's a big pickerel that came in and scared all the fish away. You can see him sliding away in the kind of the top left quadrant. He's just kind of staring at things, but eventually he kind of slides away. But that's pretty common. The panfish don't hang out for long if there's a big pickerel or a pike or a muskie or something. At least where I am, if there's a big predator fish that comes into frame, the panfish all leave. They're not sitting around waiting to be eaten. They know what's up, and they know that this is bad news, and they swim away to some place where this guy isn't. So I bopped around a little bit more, different holes. You can see a little perch in the top right quadrant of the screen. But I didn't find anything besides mostly small yellow perch. See, that one came in, took a shot at the jig. And so that seemed to be the, what was predominantly down there. I know we saw a bass, we saw the pickerel, we saw a white perch, we saw a big bluegill at the beginning, but most of the holes that I was kind of just searching around with the camera had a lot of these 6-7 inch perch in them, which is really not what I want to catch, but it gives me an idea of maybe the kind of lures that I want to use. I want to use something, well, these are a little bit better maybe down below, but I want to use something a little bit bigger to keep some of these little perch off of my jigs. So this is a 1/12 ounce Swedish pimple. When I came back the next day, I made sure to use a 1/8 ounce leech flutter spoon, which is just a much bigger spoon. I know these sound like small numbers, but profile wise, it's a much bigger spoon. And I was able to keep most of the yellow perch off my hook and catch some better fish. And so, having a camera like this, or the other underwater camera, the handheld one that I use, you learn so much more than sonar or some other electronic devices, and they're not prohibitively expensive. The handheld camera, about $100 online, and in terms of return on investment for technology, for ice fishing, you really can't beat it. Maybe like a power drill you'd get first if you didn't have one, but an underwater camera, you can learn so much. You learn so much about where the weeds are, the weed line, if they're green weeds, if they're standing up, if they're laying down, what kind of fish are on the edge. Are they fish you want to catch? Are they fish you want to imitate in terms of bait fish or patterns? So all these yellow perch are around. Maybe I want to be fishing with a perch colored lure. So this is what it looks like topside. I've got 3 lines in a single hole, which is way too many lines, and I do not recommend this unless you're trying to film a YouTube video. But the Canfish camera is on the 2x2 block. The underwater handheld camera is in my left hand, and I got a perch on the fishing rod. And again, it's those same 6-7 inch perch that we've been seeing a lot on the Camfish camera. Not too much sport from that 6 to 7 inch perch. But here it is. Here's the next day, and we got snow. We got about 3 inches of snow on the ice, and again, the snow makes it really tough to move around on ice that you don't really know is safe. I've been here before. I tested the ice. I know it's all 7 inches where I drilled. I know the parts to avoid. So I feel pretty comfortable out here. I had a little bit of a problem with the Canfish camera. That's why it's not in the hole. And I was trying to connect it to my computer to download the video. As far as I can tell, there's no way to do that. You have to upload the files from your phone through an app to Google Drive or some other storage that you can access from your phone. And then from Google Drive or whatever drive you use, whatever cloud you use, you then download that to your computer, and then take the downloaded files and put them in a folder or something, or on your desktop, and from there you can import into iMovie or some other video editing. Now, to me, that's really clunky. It's almost like the people that designed the Canfish camera, they don't fish or they don't use it. They just designed a camera that will take video, and it does take video, and it will connect to your phone. But as far as I could tell, there is not an app that you can download for a computer. And to me, that's kind of a big oversight. So it is functional. It does work. There is an on-off button, which I really appreciate, because the last camera I had, did not have an on-off button, which is amazing to me. I wish that it had a better way of attaching to the end of the Canfish camera, because it's not completely up and down vertically. But you can see from the video it worked out okay. Alright, back to the fishing. So I'm fishing with a 1/8 ounce leech flutter spoon, and it has kind of a perch pattern to it. It's called a Glow Fire Tiger, I think, and I've tipped that spoon with a piece of worm, and now I'm getting away from those 6 to 7 inch perch, and I'm catching some better sized bluegill. Sometimes they're kind of fussy, you know. An 1/8 ounce spoon is a little big for bluegill. I know some places, you know, like in the Midwest, they're fishing 1/64 ounce tungsten jigs and little tiny stuff. If you can get away with fishing a bigger spoon for bluegill, as long as they're good size like these, you're much better off fishing as big as you can go. You get the little fish away, or you keep it away from the little fish. You attract more fish to come in just because it has a bigger profile, and your ability to call in fish from a wider distance increases. So I'm catching a bunch of fish from the same hole, and I might not be able to do that with a little tiny tungsten jig. You're not attracting as many fish in. That's a nice bluegill. At different times I was using snow to wash off my hands from the fish slime. That's not a great idea because it'll make your hands colder, but I was getting away with it because I was leaving soon. It's getting dark. But I caught a bunch of bluegill out of this single hole, all on the 1/8 ounce leech flutter spoon, and they were all pretty good sized. I was a little disappointed I didn't catch that big bass. I was kind of glad I didn't catch that pickerel because he might have cut me off. If you notice my jigging technique, usually I do a couple big hops to kind of call fish in, and then my motions get a lot more subtle. And for bluegill, I like to kind of wave the spoon at them. You know, it's not like starting a lawnmower. You know, you're not swinging 3 feet every time. For bluegill, I kind of wave the spoon at them or just jiggle it in place. Sometimes you can kind of pound it, but you know, the spoon's only moving about an inch. You know, I'm not ripping it every single time. You only want to do larger motions when there's no fish down the hole and you're trying to call them in. When you're actually trying to get them to bite, you know, it's much more subtle, especially with bigger spoons, much more subtle, and you want to give them a chance to eat it too. You know, if you're constantly moving it, they don't always have a chance to eat it. All right, it's getting dark. It's time for me to go. Once again, I'm carrying my sled, but I got a little bit of an area here I can drag it. Much easier to drag that sled on the snow than carrying it over rocks and mud. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. Just like all my other videos, I'll list all the gear in the video description so you can duplicate what I was doing out here today. Hopefully catch a bunch of fish wherever you might be ice fishing across the country. I'll catch you on the next one. See ya!